Let's talk crochet. Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is Slow Crochet. Today I'm just going to be sharing with you everything that I've been crocheting in the last little bit since I last had one of these kind of check-in videos. I'm also going to be sharing the few little bits of yarn that I've added to my stash, and when I do say few little bits, that's exactly what I mean. Let me just go ahead and show you those right now. Small things. I was at the Dollar Tree, the $1.25 tree, and I did pick up 2 colors of just yarn. Premier's Just Yarn worsted. They are 109 yards for that 100% acrylic 4-weight yarn. I did choose the color Royal Blue, and this one is just yellow. But these 2 are going to be for a project. I didn't have the yellow or the blue. It's going to be a small amigurumi, and as I have one more little amigurumi that I'm working on currently, well, not currently working, I actually just frogged it. But once I have that done, then this will be the next little amigurumi thing. I am going to try to keep my amigurumis fairly small and compact over here, not really make it a big deal this year, just because storage. There's only so many little animals and plushies that I want to add to my children's growing stock, for example. So anyhow, those 2 yarns were a quick pickup from the Dollar Tree. The other yarns that I got were a surprise when I was at Goodwill. Normally my Goodwill that I go to doesn't have a lot of yarn. I have a yarny, crafty thrift store that I go to instead. Y'all might have seen my recent kind of haul video of one of their free days or take what you want, pay what you will days. But in this case, I was at Goodwill and they had some yarn for $2 a skein, so I went ahead and picked these up because they looked actually really nice, smelled clean and everything. One of them is my first ever skein of Shipyays. Y'all know we're never going to get it right, are we? But this is Merino Soft. It has a nice little pull tab. And it looks to be, 50 grams, 105 meters. And it's 50% superwash merino wool, 25% micro, and 25% acrylic. So not entirely wool, but it is a really soft yarn. It looks to be about a 3-weight or maybe even a sport weight there. The other yarn that I picked up, Debbie Bliss Baby Cashmerino with extra fine merino wool and cashmere. This is 50 grams, 125 meters of 55% wool, 33% acrylic, and 12% cashmere. And this is the color white. This one, if it has a color, I don't see it actually. Color 616. But it's a nice kind of, a little bit of a gray undertone to the blue there. A little bit less bright than the Just Yarn blue. But then the final yarn that I got, this is Sublime Baby Cashmere Merino Silk DK. And it is, it's 75% extra fine merino, 20% silk, and 5% cashmere. And this one is shade 0001. And it's 116 meters or 127 yards on 50 grams. So the 3 of these, clearly whoever got them all together. They knew what they were doing. And so I thought those 3 would work really beautifully in a little project together. That darker blue would be a good anchor point for these 2 lighter colors. So color work project ahead, and other amigurumi for that. So those are my yarny acquisitions in the last little bit amount of time. In terms of works in progress, y'all, that cardigan that I was working on in my last video, I have not touched it for a month, much to my chagrin. And today, as I'm filming, it is February 5th. So I know that you guys are seeing this a little bit later. That is one of the ways that I'm trying to keep this channel going, is to record enough ahead that I'm able to work it into my schedule in ways that make sense to me. So hence, you know, that's kind of the cost of this year. Like, if I'm going to keep the channel going, I just have to record ahead. So anyway, today's February 5th, and yes, I do intend on putting some work onto that cardigan. In fact, my friend Rena over at Snailworks Crochet said she's going to do a finish at February, and I think I'm going to do my best to finish that cardigan. The reason that I've been held up on it is because it's going to force me to think a little bit. And that's not something I always want to do when I'm crocheting. I just want to get into a rhythm or a flow, or like be able to intuit what to do next, not to have to like actively figure out the pattern. And where I'm at in that cardigan is doing the shaping on one side, and so I'm not going straight on the pattern, so I'm modifying it to some degree. Anyway, I do need to be very intentional and very awake when I'm working on that. It's not like a granny square that you can just do and then frog and all the kind of stuff. All that to say, it has been on my mind, and I do want to finish it, especially as we move from the super cold times into like a little bit warmer. I will want that cotton cardigan to have on hand. So this is me saying in February, I'm going to be working on that cardigan. I do want to finish it because there are so many other things that I want to work on. Other works in progress, I am making a small little basket. Y'all, I have frogged this so many times. I think I'm going to do, like the Starlight basket. It's a pattern by TL Yarn Crafts. I'm going to try doing that. But I've been trying to hold two different Hobby Lobby yarns together. This one is an old, I love this cotton in like, I think the color is Sock Monkey Brown. I'm just kind of trying to use up some scrap yarns, but I need a little basket to hold some of my face scrubbies. And so the problem is I've been holding two yarns together. I've done a round of 6 and it's puckering. I did a round of 8 and it was ruffling. And so maybe I just need to actually follow someone else's pattern, maybe go up a hook size. Not a big deal. It's a small thing, but that is something that is technically a work in progress, even though I'm not really working really hard on it. I do have my couple of blankets, my scrap blanket that I have finished sewing in the ends on that, but I'm now needing to get more scraps in order to work on that. And then my like sunflower pop-up popcorn granny blanket thing. I'm going to say this every time, but once that gets completely done, that's when I'm going to do the big reveal. I'm planning on doing a whole process video on that, but that is something that I am working on in the background as well. So those are technically my works in progress. And let me show you now everything that I have finished. I feel like a lot of what I've been working on has been really small projects, and maybe that has to do with like the pace that I'm going. I'm trying to not push myself and like always produce. And so I still like the reward of finishing something small. I'm going to start by showing you something that I made kind of spur of the moment. This was for a child who needed an old person. He needed to dress up as an old person. So I made this. What do you think? The thought was to have the beard, and it does unbutton here with some vintage buttons, but then to have the little kind of crazy hair hat. For this, I used a cream colored, I love this yarn. No, it was a Hobby Lobby yarn that was on clearance, but it was like the ivory color. And I just did your basic hat, but I randomly interspersed like double and double treble and treble crochets in there. And I did follow a pattern for the beard part. This has been out for a good long while, but you see how it unbuttons here. I have the buttons on the cap part. This was pretty fun to make. It did come along pretty quickly, and I held that regular yarn together with a Just Premier Teddy. So that's this texture of yarn. I'm sure it would make a really nice little teddy bear, but I thought it gave a nice kind of feel to this yarn and to the texture that I was looking for in the hat and the beard. So that was a lot of fun to work on. Another project that I finished is this large shawl. Ooh, it actually looks really nice with the colors I'm wearing. This is the Helianthus anus, which is, I think, the scientific name of a giant sunflower. But it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. And originally, I think the designer had it in more sunflower colors. But I chose these colors of Premier Eversoft, starting, I think, with Robin's Egg. And then I went into Icy Blue. And then into what is this, mellow green and spring green are those last two there. So this was my entry into Gary over at Urban Yarns' current make-along. He does mood board make-alongs, but this time you were meant to choose either like a rainbow or a fade of yarn and then create a project from that and kind of come up with a phrase that described those colors and what that superpower might be. It was a really kind of fun exercise. So originally I didn't have these yarns. I did pick them up specifically for this purpose. But when I saw them at the store, I just thought they were so lovely and worked really, really well together. So the superpower that I came up with was the phrase kind messenger. So when I was doing this shawl, I was thinking kind of feathers and kind of how messengers in mythology often have wings, whether it's angels, whether it's like the Greek god Hermes. But this idea that so many times we have information to convey to others, especially for me, I work with children a lot. And when I'm, say, holding firm on some boundaries, I'm actually being a kind messenger. I'm helping them to understand, or I'm delivering the message that, hey, what you're doing right now is not okay. Taking your friend's toy is not okay. And this message of, hey, that's wrong, or you need to stop that, there's a kindness in that. Because if I allowed you to continue to do that, you're going to believe that that's okay, and it's not going to set you up for success. You're not going to have successful relationships. You're not going to be able to keep friends if you keep taking everyone's toys, for example. So in that sense, that's really my heart, is to be a kind messenger. You know, it's easy to kind of speak the truth, or you could even say speak truth to power. But speaking the truth in love means that you're actually caring enough about that person to deliver a message, to deliver something important that they need to know, but to do it in a way that's respectful. And that's the challenge, right? But that's actually what I hope to be. And even in my crochet, I hope that it has a message of kindness, that it conveys beauty, it conveys peace, it conveys vitality and life, and really hope. I think creativity, making things, is an inherently hopeful thing. And so whenever I wear a piece that I make, it's being a messenger of hope, a messenger of kindness, and demonstrating that the world is a beautiful place and it's worth being in and it's worth investing in. All of that philosophical, theological, rambly. Y'all know my heart. I love going to deep places with y'all. So that is this shawl, the long-winded version of what this shawl is and what it means to me. So thank you, Gary, again for hosting this wonderful make-along. It has been a joy to participate in it. There are a few things that I've made that are just kind of winter weather accessories. I haven't really used a pattern for them, but I'm trying to use up what I have in my stash. So I did make a little pair of wrist warmers here. I wanted to do some ribbing, just post stitching around the edges. And then I think I did, double crochet and single crochets, back and front loops only. So it had that ridging on these little wrist warmers. This was a ball of Rowan yarn. It was some kind of cashmere blend, but I just had the one ball. So I thought a little pair of wrist warmers would be a great use for that. I also had a skein of a baby llama blend. And so I did, this could be a little neck scarf, and it could be all tied up like so. Or if I had my hair up, or even if I didn't, you could also use this maybe for a little hair tie or a little headband, perhaps. Tie that all back, make a pretty little bow, which I'm not going to take the time to do right now. But it's just a series of linked treble crochets and single crochets. Y'all, this is a design that I really like, but for whatever reason, it's just giving me trouble. I feel like every time I make something using that combination of stitches, it turns out slightly differently. So maybe I will still persevere, but I guess I'm doing my own extensive pattern testing and doing all that tweaking before I launch anything out into the world. But in the meantime, cute little hair or neck accessory thing. A more intentional hair accessory, you could say. I made a bucket hat. I was thinking about summertime. I was looking forward to days at the water park or at the lakeside, and so I saw that Crystal over at Bag O' Day did have a bucket hat pattern. So I generally followed her tutorial there. I did make it quite a bit longer, and I did kind of alternate. Instead of making it solid, I alternated doing some chain one, skip one, double crochet spaces all throughout so that it will be really nice and cheerful and not too heavyweight. But I did hold 2 strands of yarn double. It's a Hobby Lobby, I think it's a Crafter's Secret cotton. But I thought that these colors were really, really bold and really joyful. And I figure that I will be able to do my hair in little braids, have my sunglasses on, have my water gear on, and this would be wonderful to have on hand for when summertime hits. Now, I will say about her design, because I did frog this several times, but her design of having a section of single crochet, I found that to be really important in making sure that the hat fits right. As a cotton, it is going to stretch out, and I anticipate it'll have to go through the wash because it'll have chlorine and lake water and all that kind of in it. It will wash and dry, but I wanted to be sure that it does kind of fit snugly on my head so it doesn't go blowing off in the wind. But yeah, really glad that I had that made, and it does kind of, I feel like the theme is kind of that aqua color today. This is a hat that I forgot to tell y'all about. It's one that I've made so many times, but I made this out of a Malabrigo Rios that did not have a specific color attached to it. I think it was one of those like maybe a mist dye, but it's really reminiscent of, I think like the cucumber or watercolor, something like that. But it is a seafarer's cap, my absolute favorite hat pattern. Nice and stretchy. And yeah, I love the color. It's a really pale kind of minty green. I've worn this with a lot of joy recently, and I do need to make a couple more of these before it starts getting warm again. Even though I say that, you know, I think that making hats over the summer is a great thing to do because they're smaller projects, and so it's not like having a blanket that you're working on in the heat and humidity of the summer. But neither here nor there. Love this hat, and yes, there will be more of those in the future because as long as they take to make, they are such a joy for me to wear, and so they kind of fit the criteria of having longevity to them. It's worth the slowness to create something that is going to be used and loved for a long time. A couple more things I've been working on. Number one, I wanted to make a square scarf so that I could go through this book that y'all saw me with in the craft store haul, so to speak. This is a great and beautiful little book, but I was trying to make something more this scale, and I wanted to use some of the yarn from my stash, and I thought, why don't I get like a blanket pattern and do that, except instead of making it a full blanket, do it as a shawl or a scarf. And so I had this Isager alpaca merino, and I had it in 2 colors, this kind of slate blue and then this light blue. There's that. It's 50% alpaca and 50% wool, and it was about 250 meters on each of those tiny little skeins. So this is the Grace blanket, but it didn't turn out that big, y'all. It took me a good long while, and it's really pretty. But what I was hoping for with that, it would be a little bit bigger so that I could do some of those kind of shawl looks or things like that. I needed it to be a little bit bigger. So at this point, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this. It's lovely. Maybe it might make a little head wrap, or it might make a doll's blanket, something like that. I don't mind that it's beautiful yarn. I think that you could have beautiful yarn and still use it on something for a child. There was a lot of joy in making it, but it was one of those things where I'm just like, it just didn't quite hit the brief of what I was hoping it would. But still, it is a completed make, and so maybe we will hang on to that for the future, or maybe I'll even put it in with my stash of gifts. You know, I'm not sure. But regardless, I did enjoy the Grace blanket pattern. I know that's been one that's very, very popular. And it was a really great experiment to see how it would work up in like a fingering weight yarn. I think I used a G hook, like a 4.25 or 4.5 millimeter hook for it. So even though it was like a fingering weight yarn, it did kind of flow out a little bit more. I wanted it nice and drapey. Yeah, so that one is indeed done. That is a good finish for now. Finally, what I have been crocheting some mini amigurumi birds. So this is a book that has brought me a lot of joy. I've had it from the library for a while. No one's wanted it. And so once someone else puts it on hold, then I will take it back for sure. But I'm nearly at the end because I have one more bird that I'm going to make. It's not actually in the book, but I'm doing some modifications to the pattern to try to get the idea that I want. A lot of the birds in here seem to be maybe from the UK or from Europe. For example, the robin in here is more of like the robins in the UK where they have like a red face versus American robins that are kind of a chunky bird and they have a really red chest. But their faces are kind of that brownish gray. Also like the hummingbird. So here's the great example. We get hummingbirds here. They're beautiful, they're adorable, but they are not blue. They are ruby-throated. So I took the hummingbird pattern and I played around with some color changes to make more of a ruby-throated hummingbird. Now, this hummingbird does not have safety eyes. I did use some little black beads that you can just barely see, and I used kind of 3 of them there. They're catching the light right up in there. But with the hope that that would give a better sense to the bird than just the safety eyes. I only have one size of safety eye, and that doesn't always work. In fact, here's the time that it didn't work. Here is my owl. The owl in the book is definitely more inspired by like a great horned owl, but this owl is inspired by the barred owl, I'll put the picture here, that I used to see on some of my hikes. So this guy is weird. He's a mishmash. I didn't really like in the pattern how you would make the head separately and then do the body. I wanted to stitch them together. I played around with kind of being like a Frankenstein pattern. I took, I think, the eagle wings. I used the owl feet. And when I was trying to make the face of it, I didn't want just like the heart shape up top because the actual barred owl seemed to have that all the way around. So that's what I did. He looks kind of funny. I do need to take out the beak. It's just a couple of strands of yarn. I can make that smaller for sure. But I was also experimenting with using safety eyes like on the face piece, not going through the head itself and then stitching the face piece down. So that does kind of give him an extra kind of interesting look. And then even doing a little bit of an eyebrow, a stitch to kind of make him have slightly sleepier eyes. So that was an experiment. Really great learning process there. I learned a lot from complicated knots, from the way that she does her stitching when she's kind of coming up with her patterns. I learned a lot just from observing her. So this was an opportunity for me to try out some of those strategies. I did actually follow one of the birds from the book, and that was the flamingo. I just happened to have the right color of pink. And so again, I used for eyes, I used little black beads just for giving the effect that I wanted. So happy little flamingo. And then finally, this is my favorite bird. And there wasn't one in the book. And again, I did some heavy pattern modification and Franken patterning, but I made a blue heron. I just love this guy. I love how he turned out. I did start basically with the flamingo pattern, but I did some strategic increases and decreases on the neck to give him that curvy neck shape, that more of an S shape. I kind of fudged doing his little flare of feathers on the back there. I think I used the seagull wings perhaps, and I think I used the stork feet. But yeah, this is how my heron turned out. Again, the little beads for eyes. I just love this guy. He is my absolute favorite. He is such a joy to me, not only because I love these birds, but I love that I was able to kind of capture some of the naturalism in the shapes that he has. So yes, I think future editing Mary will pop in here because I want to show off the one last bird that at time of filming I haven't made yet, but I've made some progress on. But yeah, editing Mary here. I just wanted to show off the fact that I did complete my cardinal. Okay, so this one, again, it was based on the blue tit pattern. And I used a lot of the perspective I get from Kylie over at Complicated Knots, aka CK. I love watching her, either her live streams where she's like live crocheting different Pokemon, and just her process is really fascinating. But I've also learned a lot from doing some of her patterns, her little bird patterns, her shark patterns, things like that. So the things that I did that I kept the same, I did keep the tail the same, I kept the feet, and I kept the shape of the body, but I added some half double crochets at the top to make his crest. I made the beak a bit bigger, and I did do color changes. I haven't put on his little beady eyes yet, but they're gonna blend into the black anyway. But yeah, the wings I used from, I didn't go back and look at the tutorial itself, but I used that same idea from a parrot pattern that I'd made from Complicated Knots. I'll have that linked below. But yes, I wanted to jump on and show this before I take the book back to the library. Great book in terms of making me think about birds a little bit differently. But yeah, I did want to feature my little cardinal here. And yeah, I think this is maybe the end of the video, but I'm gonna jump you back to the rest of it. And I will let my little cardinal come and join my other friends over here. So back to the present, just in time for me to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today. It's been a joy to just share with you everything that I have been crocheting. I know it's been a lot. I know there's been a lot of changes on this channel, and I'm not popping in every week to show you what I've been working on, but that really has meant that I feel like I'm able to keep the channel going. It's just a lot with life right now. My life is very, very full, but being able to share this kind of stuff with you guys makes a big difference in my life, and it does bring me a lot of joy. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me in the comments. Thank you for being my yarny people, my crochet people. I really do appreciate you. It is such an honor to spend some time with you. So yeah, thank you to my subscribers. Y'all keep coming, and I keep appreciating you. Thank you to everyone who comments and likes this video and supports the channel in any way. And if for whatever reason I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. This is a long video. I really do appreciate you, and I do hope I will see you again soon. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.